Welcome back to our Arsenal podcast. My name is Kosi. Welcome back to a brand new video. There is a problem that we have to find a solution for, and that problem is the absence of Julian Timber. Now, for this weekend, we won't have a new signing. I don't think Arsenal will sign someone by Monday so that we can actually register them for that game. So we have to look in-house inside the squad. But then also, it doesn't also guarantee that Arsenal will go out there and sign quite an impressive talent as Julian Timber. So what are the options Arsenal have in terms of replacing Julian Timber inside? Now, of course, we know Alexander Zinchenko has got that ability to play there. He's such a very formidable force. But with Declan Rice and Thomas Partey in the side, that actually destabilizes the way we played, especially against Nottingham Forest. Hit the like button, subscribe to the podcast as well. I want you to let me know in the comment box below. Would you prefer Alexander Zinchenko back in the team, or would you prefer Kieran Tierney there or Jakub Kiwior? Those are all options we are going to explore in this video. And to tell you something, when it comes to squad depth now, Arsenal really have a lot of squad depth. We do have a lot of players in very different, in different positions. But on that left-hand side, especially left back, we have so many players. Would you prefer Tomiyasu? Would you prefer Kiwior? Would you prefer Declan Rice playing there, by the way? Would you prefer Zinchenko or Kiwior as well? So let me know in the comment box below. Who do you think Arsenal and Mikel Arteta should actually replace Julian Timber with against Crystal Palace? Now, just to inform you, this is going to be a very difficult exercise for Mikel Arteta, because Julian Timber is one of the really talented players that are very hard to replace. I don't think Arteta is going to have an easy ride when it comes to replacing Julian Timber, but eventually we have to do it. The advantage of playing Julian Timber on the left-hand side, which has actually come as a blessing in disguise, is, yes, he's picked up that kind of nasty injury, but in this area here, in this part of the field, we have so many players that can actually play there. Right? Yeah, I'm bragging a little bit, but we have so many players that can give us some quality down the left-hand side. So with Julian Timber out of the side, naturally, it would be Timber out of the team, as simple as that, and then you introduce Alexander Zinchenko, who played their last campaign, and he's got his own advantages. Now, I know he's not defensively astute, he's not as defensively solid as Julian Timber, but listen to me. Last season, Arsenal played the way they played, courtesy of Alexander Zinchenko. He propelled us forward. He was one of the few players in that Arsenal team that always looked to pass the ball forward. He was one of the few players in that Arsenal team that defensively were tasked, but also offensively were really responsible. So he had so many key passes, he had so many balls entering the penalty area, and he had so many forward passes as well. You need such players. Now, one thing I love about Declan Rice and Thomas Partey is they are always forward thinking. They really love to propel the ball forward, but Alexander Zinchenko is another level. And you saw it when we played with him in those good games. He was absolutely very, very phenomenal. So I think Mikel Arteta, he said in his press conference that Zinchenko is back and there is nothing to be worried about if you are an Arsenal fan. That is something to be very, very happy about. So with Alexander Zinchenko coming back in the side, it means that Arsenal might not actually invert with Thomas Partey in this area. The reason is you don't have to invert with two players that are not defensively sure. Because we know Alexander Zinchenko loves to go in front. Of course, Trossard will be, or Kai Havertz occupying those spaces. Odegaard will be occupying those half spaces as well. So Alexander Zinchenko then loves to come into the midfield to play alongside Declan Rice or Thomas Partey, regardless of who's going to play there. I don't want the debate right now, okay? So because Zinchenko is going to pick up very high positions in the pitch around this area here, it means that you have to invert with three center backs. You have to you have to play with three center backs who actually have to shuffle along to form a back three. Thomas Partey cannot be among these three unless it's a very weak opposition where you're really sure you're going to have a lot of ball control. But if it's not that, Thomas Partey cannot be part of a back three. And even if it's a game where Arsenal will have a lot of ball control, we saw it against Nottingham Forest, we need to have a proper back three, right? So Alexander Zinchenko is not a defender, not in any way whatsoever. He doesn't allow you play a back three with him, Saliba, and White. So that is one problem. So that means that if Alexander Zinchenko comes into the side, just like we've said there, it means that either of Thomas Partey or Declan Rice might have to get out of the starting lineup. The reason is very simple. So if, for example, if we sacrifice Thomas Partey for a bit and we introduce Gabriel, the lineup then goes back to what we had last campaign with Saliba, Gabriel, White, and Gabi. So Gabi, Saliba, and White would be shuffling into back three. It means that Declan Rice then becomes our pivot, right? Gives us that role that Thomas Partey was giving us, and then he plays alongside in midfield. He will be playing alongside Alexander Zinchenko, and then Martinelli, you know, widening the pitch on the left, and then Saka widening the pitch on the right-hand side. Odegaard picks up his half spaces on the right, and then Leandro Trossard or Kai Havertz will pick up the right the half spaces on the left-hand side. The advantages to this system, although many people actually don't like it because of Alexander Zinchenko's defensive weaknesses and frailties, the one thing it does and the one thing it will give us is bodies going forward and intelligent players going forward. So if you saw Julian Timber against Nottingham Forest, this is one thing you will have realized. We played in a back three with Gabriel out of the team and Julian Timber, who I'm going to use this white white pawn for. So shuffling into back three with Saliba and White, and that allowed Declan Rice to play on the left hand side to go a little bit further forward, and that created space for Thomas Partey, right? So Partey remained as the anchor man, as the main man in midfield, and then Declan Rice could then go and pick up these high advanced positions or even wider positions on the left hand side, which was actually very good because it is unpredictable, and so many clubs actually didn't expect us to play in such a way. So with Leandro Trossard or Kai Havertz and then Declan Rice and Gabriel Martinelli overloading that left-hand side, the left-hand side was a little bit better than it was last season in terms of ball possession, but also in terms of creating chances and getting opportunities for the team. But because Timber is out now, it means Gabriel comes back straight into the team as first option. Alexander Zinchenko as well comes back straight in the team, and then one of Thomas Partey or Declan Rice has to drop. And for me, in this case, initially, it's got to be Thomas Partey. I think Declan Rice has done so well ever since arriving in the team, and he will be forced to take up that slightly reserved role, but I still think it's Alexander Zinchenko moving further forward and Declan Rice roaming in this area here, just making sure that there's enough protection for the back three, and also enough protection for the guys going forward, which actually can, because there's a lot of pace, a lot of good interception skills, and also a lot of good tackle skills as well. Okay, so that is one way to replace Timber. It allows us propel the ball forward, but it shifts that burden of protecting the back three for onto Declan Rice. But the advantages of this, before we get into Alexander Zinchenko's defensive frailties, of course, the disadvantage is easy. Let's get to let's highlight the disadvantage of this system, just like we've always done last campaign. So because Alexander Zinchenko will be high up the pitch, it means that any team that we are playing against will have the ability to just get us on the break. And last campaign, many of the teams actually targeted this area where Alexander Zinchenko plays. And the reason is Zinchenko is not very good defensively, and even if you found him in this area, you could easily bypass him and you will bring him across into the penalty area or even go for goal. We saw that against Liverpool at the Anfield, where Trent Alexander-Arnold literally bypassed Alexander Zinchenko as if he was not there, and they scored a second. Maybe if it was better defensively, Arsenal might not have considered that weak, silly goal. So why then do we introduce Zinchenko and not a player like Jakub Kiwior and not a player like Kieran Tierney? The answer is very easy. Because Alexander Zinchenko is going to be high up the pitch and Declan Rice is going to be a little bit deeper, and we know that Rice loves to play in these areas here on the left hand side. If you look at his heat map, he loves to tilt the pitch towards the left hand side. It means that we will have enough cover on the left hand side as Declan Rice just drops into this position where Alexander Zinchenko will be coming from. So the advantage, of course, that there means that we will have two players that are really intelligent on the ball, and that means that it won't be an interchange between Zinchenko and Rice, who goes forward and who actually comes back. It will be an interchange between Rice and Gabriel Magalhaes. So when Rice comes into these areas around here, then Gabi will have to shift across, and when Gabi then is pushed back forward, then Rice will have to shift across as well and come back and form a back four. That means that Alexander Zinchenko will have less to do defensively, and when he comes back into these defensive positions, he can actually fall between Rice and Gabi, or even just come into midfield and become a defensive midfielder, which Declan Rice would be giving us. The problem with this thing is very, very visible. Declan Rice is our defensive midfielder and he's our number 6 and he's the protection for the defense. So when he drops into this left-hand side, this area here of the pitch remains unprotected, and Alexander Zinchenko and Martin Odegaard cannot protect this part of the pitch. They just can't. Not to the extent of Thomas Partey, not to the extent of Declan Rice. Okay, so that means that Arsenal will be a little bit exposed in midfield, but there is one upside to this one. Arsenal will be able to score as many goals as we want when Zinchenko is back in the side. So do you agree with me that Alexander Zinchenko has then got to play for Arsenal in the next game until Julian Timber comes back? Because we want goals, we want chances, and he is the guy to give us goals, and he's also the guy to give us the chances as well. But then also, Mikel Arteta could decide that he doesn't really want to play with Alexander Zinchenko because of the defensive frailties and the defensive incompetencies of the Ukrainian captain. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you Jakub Kiwior. Right, so shirt number 15 really, and I don't have that, so let's go with shirt number 15 around here. So let's create our own 15. So Jakub Kiwior then arrives in to replace Julian Timber. With Jakub Kiwior, it is very, very similar to what we played against Forest. It means that Gabi then drops out of the team as well, and then Saliba shifts across as the main centre back. Jakub Kiwior on the left. Another centre back would be Benjamin White. Partey then would be playing on the right hand side as your right back, but then shifting into midfield. Odegaard arrives inside. Trossard and Kai Havertz, or whoever plays there, will be going further forward as well. So Rice would be covering on the left hand side, and Thomas Partey will be covering on the right hand side as well. This one has one downside, and the downside is easy. Jakub Kiwior is not as intelligent as Timber, and his movement is not as fluid and free as Julian Timber's. So that means that there will be less rotation between Kiwior and Rice, which actually might not be a big problem. But where the problem is that it can be easy to keep Declan Rice out of the game. Why Julian Timber is such a very special character and a special player is that he allows Rice to drop into these areas to pick up the ball, and then Timber can actually push further forward. So the opponent cannot focus on one player, right? It is a lot of oscillations between Rice and and Timber. So with Jakub Kiwior, you will have to play kind of a centre-backy left back route there. Rice then is not going to be dropping a lot of the time. He will be dropping maybe in these areas just to receive the ball and then progress it further forward. Other than that, the defense would be fine. The problem with this system is the same problem we saw against Crystal Palace, against Nottingham Forest. The goals and the creativity is affected. Rice is not yet there to score the goals and create chances. and therefore a player like Alexander Zinchenko is still needed in this system. The other player that, of course, we could play, and the other system we could actually turn to is when we play Takehiro Tomiyasu in these areas. Of course, we've already seen Takehiro Tomiyasu, play for Arsenal in the Nottingham Forest game when Timber actually picked up an injury. The good thing with Takehiro Tomiyasu is he's more like a fullback, so he can actually travel this line. And he can actually travel the line coming inside. We saw that. He did even get a shot away in the Nottingham Forest game. So that is actually impressive. But the problem with these guys, all of them, they are not Jurrien Timber. So for me, the best advice I would give to Mikel Arteta, the best way Arsenal could actually set up without Jurrien Timber is playing Alexander Zinchenko, because you lose the defensive ability of Timber, but you get the attacking force, you get the attacking brilliance of Alexander Zinchenko. If you agree with me, let me know in the comments box below. If you like this video, consider subscribing, hit the like button, and I'll speak to you right in the next one.